Hi everyone, my name is Harper Fendler. I am the cocktail resident here at Food 52, and today in cocktail class we are going to be making a daiquiri. All right, so let's talk about a daiquiri. Now, the daiquiri is credited as being created in Cuba back around 1896 by Jennings Stockton Cox Jr. The guy flew down to Cuba and opened up a mining colony in Daiquiri, Cuba. As the story goes, he was trying to figure out a way to make his sanitized water more palatable. They were taking these high-proof spirits, throwing it into water, and then drinking it, and it was a little rough. So supposedly, he was the one who first added lime juice to it, and then a little bit of sugar, and then took it to a party, and it was a hit. In reality, he probably was not the first guy to think, hey, rum, lime, sugar, that's a good combination. We actually see examples of what could be considered a daiquiri in a lot of different places. Even outside of Cuba, you're gonna find a bunch of different interpretations of what a daiquiri could be. Over in French Martinique, we have a tea punch. In Brazil, we're gonna talk about a caipirinha. So anywhere in the world where you're finding rum and citrus, you're probably gonna be finding a daiquiri. But if we're talking about a classic daiquiri, we are gonna give credit to Cuba. Now let's talk about what goes into a daiquiri. A daiquiri is a really simple formula. It's rum, it's lime, and it's sugar. That is what we could generally refer to as a sour. So a sour is any base spirit plus a citrus plus a bit of sugar. What we're gonna be using today is a white rum, but there's also gold rum, there's dark rum, and then we even get into the world of añejo as well. When we're making a daiquiri, I recommend sticking with a white or a gold rum. Let's talk fruit. Specifically, limes. We really want to use fresh lime juice. If you see limeade in the grocery store or you see the things that say just lime, I wouldn't bother personally. It's just as easy to get some limes and juice them yourself. Plus, it's going to be a lot fresher and it's going to taste a lot better. When I'm juicing limes or lemons, my max shelf life with those is about 48 hours. After that, it starts to lose its color, it starts to turn bitter and really astringent. At that point, I would just toss it. If you're buying, lime juice from a grocery store, it's gonna start to turn the minute you open it. That's why when I buy limes, I juice what I need. That way, it never goes bad. All right, sugar. A lot of the sugar that you're finding in the grocery store these days are going to be beet sugar derivatives. That stuff that you see that's the white bleach sugar, that's actually coming from beets. When I make a daiquiri, I like to use cane sugar. It's gonna be the same base as the spirit, so it ends up pairing a lot better. Let's talk glassware. Let me grab one. So most daiquiris that you're gonna get at a bar these days are gonna be served up in a coupe. But if you want to, shaved ice, crushed ice, pebbled ice, there's really no wrong way to drink a daiquiri. A daiquiri is a great test of a bar program, and a bartender. If a bartender can make you a daiquiri using just rum, lime, and sugar, and it's something that is satisfying, refreshing, clean, that is a really great test of a bartender. I've been really lucky to try a lot of daiquiris over the years. This is the daiquiri that I've landed on that is my favorite and I want to share with you today. I'm going to be using the Banks 5 Island rum. What's great about this is it is a blend of 5 different countries' rums. The reason I like doing that is it creates a really great body. It's a really fun example of sampling rums from the world. So I recommend using the Banks 5 Island for this daiquiri specifically. We're gonna grab our shakers. We're gonna get our sugar and a grapefruit. Now this sugar that we're using is a rich Demerara sugar. This is actually 2 parts sugar to 1 part water. I like the flavor of Demerara as opposed to a white sugar or even a refined cane sugar. You get a little bit more of the molasses notes to it. And I went with a 2-to-1 because of the body. So when we're shaking a drink, one of the main things that we're worried about is dilution. And when you use a rich simple syrup, it's more likely that it's gonna add the body that you want while you can still get the dilution that you need from shaking. And you may have noticed I grabbed a grapefruit. Now you don't typically think of using a grapefruit in a daiquiri unless you're making a Hemingway daiquiri. But what I like to do with a grapefruit is I'm just gonna use the peel when I'm shaking it. This is known as a regal shake. What we're doing is actually infusing all of those oils throughout the entire drink. If you want to try this at home, I highly recommend using either grapefruit or orange. If you use lemon, it gets a little soapy, so I would stick with the richer citrus instead. Let's make my daiquiri. I'm gonna grab my jigger. I'm going to grab my Demerara 2-to-1, and I'm going to be pouring in half an ounce of this rich Demerara. Now I'm starting with the sugar and the citrus, not from a container, freshly squeezed. I'm doing an ounce of the lime juice. I'm starting with the sugar and citrus because if I am a little clumsy or I've already had one, there's a higher chance that I knock over the tin. So I'm starting with the cheap ingredients first as opposed to filling it with rum and then spilling all of my rum everywhere. I've got my sugar in there, half an ounce of 2-to-1, my lime, full ounce of lime, and now we're gonna add our rum. All right. Very last thing we're gonna do, we're gonna take our grapefruit and get a little peel off of it. When I say little peel, I actually mean a fat peel. So we're gonna go ahead, dig in there, get a nice peel all the way down. This isn't for garnish, this isn't to be pretty, this is to get as much oil as you can into the drink. Last thing we need is ice. We have these big, nice cubes of ice. If you're using slightly smaller, slightly more brittle ice, use a little bit more. When you're shaking a drink, the point is to get it cold and to get it diluted. And if you have a lot of ice that's just gonna break up as you're shaking it, what's gonna happen is it's gonna break up, it's gonna over dilute, and it's not gonna get cold enough, fast enough. Now, if you look at the tin, you can see it starting to frost up a little bit. You have that condensation, and I can feel that it's cold. So we're gonna call it good, pop the tin off. Now, let me get a cold glass. This one's room temp. Don't do that. This glass has been sitting in the freezer. If you don't have freezer space for glassware, adding a little bit of ice and a little bit of cold water to this before you start making the drink helps chill it down. And now I'm gonna fine strain. The reason I'm using a fine strainer is a couple of reasons. One, we have all of these little shards of ice that I'm collecting in here that we don't want on the top of the drink. It's also that bit of peel that's been getting beat up the entire time in the shaker. Just gotta garnish with our lime wheel. And we have my daiquiri. Cheers. It's great. You get all the funk from the rum that you're hoping for, a nice amount of body from that Demerara 2-to-1, but it's still really bright and really refreshing from that full ounce of lime. And then we have that X factor of the grapefruit oil infused throughout the entire drink, rounding it out and really giving it that last little push to the finish line. It's a great template, a great foundation for you to try your own things. And that's kind of how it's supposed to be. So I recommend trying this. I recommend trying your own as well. I want to thank you all for joining me here in cocktail class. I really appreciate your time. Give this one a shot. If you want to try your own variation or your own riff, absolutely go for it. The important thing is that you have a daiquiri in the very near future. In the meantime, cheers, and thanks for watching.